So I read another Drizzt book, but this one is a slight different than all the other ones. It doesn't have Drizzt in it.
What?
Drizzt is dead.
No!
So it opens with this battle between him and the elf girl from the last book, Dahlia, and she's really mad at him, and it doesn't explain why. And so she just starts like attacking him with her flails, and he doesn't do anything because he's like, I'm not gonna fight you. And so it's just him getting whacked and beaten. And so like the beginning of the book ends with Drizzt just like in a bloody pulp laying on the ground, and they just all like leave him. And then it cuts off to this like beautiful like mythical forest where his old friends, Caddy, Bree, Regis, Brunner, and Wolfgar, who are all dead now, are. And they're yeah, it makes no sense. But Caddy Bree gets a vision from the god that Drizzt worships, and pretty much tells the rest of the companions that they've been offered like a second chance of life, and so they have two options. They can go through this pool in the forest and go to whatever afterlife they kind of choose, or they can go through like this path in the forest and be reborn into a new body. And so Caddy Bree is like, we need to help Drizzt because Drizzt's going to be in trouble soon. There's going to be this big battle. They don't know that Drizzt is dying. So Caddy Bree walks through the paths. She goes to New Life to go help Drizzt because they were married, so she's like his wife. Brunner does the same thing, and Regis goes through the path. And Wolfgar's like, I don't really like I just kind of want to be dead. And so he goes through the pool. And so then they all get reborn into different people. So Caddy Bree is this little girl in a nomadic desert tribe off the sands of the Netherreal Empire, which means nothing. She lives in a desert. And these warlord people that are trying to conquer the desert come up and attack her tribe. And she, in the New Life, she got like new powers, so she can like cast magic and turn into animals. So she summons so there's two dudes, and they're like, oh no. And so she summons as like a storm cloud and zaps them both with lightning, and they die. And that's like the first thing in the book that happens, the first like real thing. And the way the book works is like it'll just jump around between people. So like one chapter will be on one person, and then like it shows what the other two people are doing at the same time, and then it like repeats that as they grow up. So like this is like when she's 5 years old, she kills him with lightning, and then she turns into a bird and flies away. She fakes her own death actually. She zaps the tent too, and pretends she was in there, and so then she flies away and hides in like the sands and stuff, turning into like a wolf and like just hiding away so that the Netherreal, the conquering people, don't try to come and kill her family again because they were looking for her. Brunner is still a dwarf, so he lives down in the Citadel Felbar is what it's called. He's got a beard, even though he's young, and is like nice hair. So he's kind of like regrets being alive again. He's like, this kind of sucks. Like, I don't want to have to like relearn everything because they're born with all their previous memories. So like he's a baby and he already knows like everything from his previous life. And so like then he becomes like a young dwarf and he's being trained and he's like, yo, like I already know all this. And so he just starts whomping on the rest of his class. And even his teacher, because his teacher's like, all right, this kid's too cocky, I gotta knock him down a pole. And then Brunner just absolutely kicks his butt. And then he's like, okay, you're too good for my class. Let's send you out on patrol. And then it shifts over to Regis. And Regis is, in his previous life, Regis was the wimp of the group. He kind of sucked. He didn't do a whole lot. He got kidnapped, and he was kind of a plot device. And so he was like, this time around, I'm going to actually be useful. And so he's born with the ability to breathe underwater. So he just kind of like hangs out underwater sometimes. And so he lives on a coastal city called Delphamoon, and he is a pearl diver. So he goes and like grabs pearls and then sells them. And his father is an alcoholic who then takes those pearls and buys beers. And so one day, this guy named the grandfather, who kind of runs the town, approaches Regis's dad, and he goes, "Hey, I want your kid to work for him." Like, he doesn't like want to own him, but the dad is like, "Yeah, sure, as long as I get an infinite supply of beer." And so his dad is like drinking himself to death, and Regis sees this, and he's like, he goes to the grandfather because he now works with him, and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna leave and like run away unless you stop giving my dad alcohol because I don't want to watch him die." And so the grandfather's like, "All right, sure." And so then the dad doesn't die, but he hates Regis now because he cut off his alcohol supply, so he kind of kicks him out. So Regis goes and lives with the grandfather, who reveals to him that his actual profession is not a pearl diver. The grandfather actually runs an assassin guild. So he trains Regis to be an assassin, so he actually learns how to fight, and he's not useless anymore. Then it cuts back to Caddy Bree, who's now grown up, and this wizard lady is like hearing all these stories of this girl in the desert who is like casting magic and like healing people. She just like flies around the desert and helps people. And she's like, "Hey, who is this person?" So she's in her like magic wizard tower, and she's looking through her crystal ball, and she sees Caddy Bree flying around, and she's like, "Hey, I want this girl." And so Caddy Bree's flying as a bird, and she casts a spell to like stop her flying so that Caddy Bree falls, because it's like a test. And she's like, what does she do if I like mess her up? And so then Caddy Bree casts a levitation spell and floats to the ground, and then the wizard lady knows that she's being trained by her parents, who were also wizards, but they were secret wizards. And so then she recruits Caddy Bree to come join her wizarding school. So Caddy Bree gets trained as a wizard. Then it cuts back to Bruner, and this is actually my favorite part of the book. Bruner comes across a giant. He's out on patrol with his like other dwarf buddies, and there's this big old giant who's like, you know, and all the other people are running away, and the giant is like throwing trees at them, and Bruner's just like, "You know what, just like stop." And so he grabs his axe and he single-handedly kills the giant. He like cuts off its knees and then like jumps up on it and like slams his thing through its eyes. And then because of that, he gets promoted by the king, the dwarf king, and he's like, "Hey, I'll give you any like wish you want, like any request you make, I'll give it to you." And Bruner goes, "Yeah, I want to go to Mithril Hall." And Mithril Hall is the old place where Bruner used to rule. It's like another dwarf kingdom. And Bruner's like, "Yeah, now I'm going to go reclaim my throne. I'm going to go tell everybody that I'm Bruner, and then I'm going to become king again." And then it cuts back to Regis, who is now diving in a boat. He's trained enough with the grandfather that the grandfather's like, "Hey, the whole reason I recruited you is because you could dive really well. And there's this ancient ship out on the shore that was once belonged to a lich, which is like an undead wizard kind of person." And so Regis, he dives down into the ship, and there's this weird like coffin thing with a skull on it. And he's like, "Oh yeah, let's touch the coffin thing. That definitely doesn't hold anything evil." And so he opens it up because like he's stupid. And he releases the lich, who was in the coffin, back into the town. And so it like it kind of manifests itself as like smoke. So it like smokes out, and it's like, you know. And then it goes and kills the grandfather, and Regis's girlfriend, and his dad, and like the whole town. And Regis is underwater, so he doesn't know any of this. And then he goes back into the town, and it's just a bunch of bodies, and he's like, so then he runs away, and he goes to Icewind Dale, which is the place that they were all supposed to like meet up once they were all adults and could like leave their families. So Icewind Dale was also where Drizzt was, and so yeah, they all meet up in Icewind Dale, and they find Drizzt in his bloodied state. Category heals him. Drizzt doesn't actually die. He stays alive, but they really tease it at the beginning of the book. And then they're all reunited, and Wulfgar shows back up and is like, yeah, psych, I lied. I did actually become reincarnated. That's kind of the book. I really liked it. It was one of my favorite books that I've read of Drizzt in a long while. It didn't have Drizzt, which was kind of refreshing, but kind of sad because I like Drizzt. I say that you should read it, but I know none of you will because it's not. It's book 30, so you got 30 more books to read before you get there. Oh, the theme is all about friendship. And there's a big comparison, all these books today. There's a big comparison between Drizzt's like old friend who have then like faced death to come back and help him, and Drizzt's new friends who beat him up and left him for dead. And so there's kind of like that parallel is the theme.